Sup, everyone. We are back at it again. Joey D and Timmy B, the Flea Flicker. We told you it wasn't going away. We did take a little bit of a couple of weeks off, but Joe, how are you feeling now that it's been a couple of weeks since the Super Bowl and we're finally kind of in the NFL offseason right now?
Yeah, off-season mode. I love this, drafts coming up and, just really excited for that. There's a lot of good players coming out. So it's fun. I love off-season mode. I mean, there's already been a couple of big trades. There's going to be a lot of moving parts this off-season. So, there's kind of a lot to take in and, only a couple things to cover this week, unfortunately, but, I know there's going to be a lot more coming up soon.
Absolutely, especially with the league year starting now in this month. It is March. Happy March. So the league year is going to be starting this year. So we're going to get some more free agency news, more release news, camp, all that stuff. But yeah, not too much to talk about today. And Joe, we've been talking about our first topic kind of leading up to the Super Bowl and before the all-season mode. And of course, it's your Philadelphia Eagles trading Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts for a third-round pick this year and a second-round pick next year. Could potentially turn into a first-round pick, depending how much he plays. So now, Joe, you've about a week and a half, 2 weeks to kind of let this digest and everything. So you have the floor. What are your thoughts on this Carson Wentz trade to the Colts? And just give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, initially it seems a little bit underwhelming. I mean, a third and a conditional second, is not, great value for, a guy who's supposed to be our franchise quarterback and who we traded up to take number 2 overall. But, I really think that, unfortunately right now, we're in a bind and, this is the lowest his value, has ever been. And, we had to trade him. I mean, he didn't want to be in Philly. And also I think that he had kind of made it clear he preferred to go to the Colts. So that also hurt our leverage with other teams that were bidding, like the Bears, who, now they're not sure if he even wants to play for them or will play for them, and they pull their deal out. So we kind of had to take what we could get in this situation. Overall, it's an organizational failure that, he's being traded 5 years after he was drafted. But it was bound to happen based on all the reports that we were hearing. So the fact that we did end up getting a third round pick and what I think will end up being a first round pick, I think it's better value than I think a lot of people thought that we would receive with how bad he was this year, how everyone knew he wanted out, how he had this massive contract. So, I mean, there was a lot to navigate and to, acquire what looks like it will be a first round pick next year. Because Carson Wentz has only played under 70% his snaps in one season out of 5.
Yeah, he basically needs to play 13 or 14 games in order to hit that. So, I mean, as long as he doesn't have a 4 to 6 week injury or more, you should be safe to get a first round pick.
Yeah, I think that we will. And I think it's a good trade for the Colts for, where they're at right now. I mean, they're in a position where, Phillip Rivers is gone. Do you want to go back to Jacoby Brissett? Do you want to trade up and draft a young guy? Or do you want to take a flyer on Carson Wentz, who already has some familiarity with Frank Reich in this system? And, has that boomer bust potential. So, it'll be interesting to see how it goes with the Colts. I heard it kind of phrased to a Colts reporter. It was a really good question. It was, if they make this trade for Carson Wentz and, they end up kind of doing the same thing they did this year, go 11-5, but lose in the first round of the playoffs, or, make it to the next round, the playoffs and then lose, is this trade a success or a failure for the Colts? And I think overall it would have to be looked at as a failure for them since, they need to get to the Super Bowl. They're looking at this as, this is their guy to get them to that next level. So I think it's definitely a risk for the Colts because, this very well might end up being, they, like I said, they're 11-5. They make it to the playoffs and, they're bounced in the first round. I mean, I think right now they're probably, the 4th or 5th best team in the AFC, even with Carson Wentz. So, it's a very interesting situation. It's frustrating as an Eagles fan that it came to this, but, if Carson Wentz, tough got going, or, it got tough, then Carson Wentz got going. So, here we are. So it's a tough situation to be in, but it is what it is. I'm thankful we got some value back from it. And now, right now, Jalen Hurts is the only QB under contract for the Eagles, and they've said they're going to bring in some competition for him now. So I'm hoping that that's a veteran quarterback that they bring in to be the backup, like a Tyrod Taylor, an RG3, someone like that. But there's also a lot of chatter about the Eagles taking a QB at 6 or trading up, even higher to take a QB.
Factory.
QB factory. So, I mean, to me, like I want us to give Jalen Hurts a shot this year because I don't think we're going to be good one way or the other. It's going to be a rebuilding year, and we got to see what we got with Jalen Hurts, and start adding some talent and some playmakers around whoever is going to be quarterback. I mean, the O-line's getting older too. There's a lot of holes on this roster that need to be filled, and we're not drafting this high very often. So, I mean, you have a chance to get an elite caliber player. But my concern is kind of in that same train of thought. We're not drafting this high very often. If the Eagles aren't 100% sold on Jalen Hurts as being an elite quarterback, and they think that one of these guys has the chance to be an elite quarterback, they will take that guy. So that's kind of, the frustrating part of the situation. I think Jalen Hurts flashed. I think he's got talent. I think he's got all of the intangibles that you want in your starting quarterback. He just doesn't have that elite arm talent. And, some of these quarterbacks, at the top of the draft, they do. And like I said, if the Eagles brass looks at him and they think Jalen Hurts has the potential to be a good quarterback, but these QBs have the chance to be an elite QB, then they're going to go ahead and take that guy. So it could be a Justin Fields. It could be a Zach Wilson. I really hope it's not a Trey Lance and, we're not drafting another North Dakota State QB. I think I saw someone actually mocked Mac Jones to the Eagles today on CBS. He's getting a lot of chatter and is, that late riser that we're seeing. I don't want him either. I think I could convince myself about Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. I really don't want Trey Lance. I really don't want Mac Jones. I really think that Jalen Hurts is, our best bet for this year. And, you got to give him a fair shot. But, I also thought the Eagles were going to take Justin Jefferson last year. I also didn't think they were going to take a quarterback at all last year. So, this is the year that, I swear every time I think that I think I know what they're going to do. There's something I want them to do. They don't do it. So I'm fully, prepared for a quarterback to be the pick, unfortunately.
Yeah, you nailed it too. I mean, when Joe Flacco went down and the Ravens ended up with the 5th pick after we struggled, it was basically Zeke, Ramsey, or, Laramie Tunsil, Ronnie Stanley, and we just took, the one that wasn't taken. Zeke was 3rd pick, Jalen Ramsey was 4th, so we took Ronnie Stanley. In hindsight, probably the best. I mean, we would have liked Jalen Ramsey for sure, but it's always nice when you're picking early, just get that dominant left tackle or dominant wide receiver, especially when you have such a young quarterback or you have – kind of like the Ravens, Joe Flacco, like, let's just get the left tackle. Okay, quarterback might be an issue this year, but let's at least get the left tackle. We can have a dominant running game. So hopefully the Eagles don't screw that up. And you said it with the Colts too. It's that, I mean, they were right there with the Titans this year. If the ball went, one way or the other, they're 11-5 and playing that home game against the Ravens and not being 11-5 on the road against the Bills in the playoffs. So yeah, they're right there. I mean, the Jaguars, even though they'll have Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence, or whoever they take at number 1, they're going to be, kind of that young, sexy team, but they're still probably going to go 4-12. The Texans, they're bad. They're bad.
Yep.
So your only competition is the Titans. And with the AFC having 7 playoff teams, I mean, safe to assume right now it's going to be the Chiefs, probably the Ravens and the Browns, and then the Colts
Bills.
And the Bills, and then the Colts and Titans are right there. Those are your 6 teams, and then Chargers, Steelers, whoever. So they're right there. They're in a good spot for the playoffs. So hopefully reuniting Wentz and Frank Reich will be good. So that's it. And speaking of the Houston Texans, Joe, the next topic that we have to talk about, they're not trading Deshaun Watson right now, but JJ Watt wanted to be released, and they said, okie dokie. And then actually this morning, he tweeted out a picture of him working out in an Arizona Cardinals t-shirt. And it is known that he will be signing with the Arizona Cardinals. I believe it's 2 years for about $33 million. I think I saw somewhere in the low 30s. So whoa. I did not expect the Cardinals. Everybody was saying
Yeah.
the Bills or the Browns or, maybe even the Saints, but the Cardinals
Or
just
the
kind of came out of
Steelers,
nowhere.
like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, he said he wanted to win a championship, so that eliminates the Steelers. So
that's fair.
But
that's why it's confusing that he went to the Cardinals.
right. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I think it's a great deal for both teams. I mean, JJ Watt, I mean, I don't think that this is like his Tom Brady. I'm retiring, going to Florida to play a couple of years, going to Arizona to play a couple of years. But he went into one of the toughest divisions if not the toughest division in football. I mean, now you got the Rams with Matthew Stafford and an upbeat running game that we saw toward the end of last year. Russell Wilson, we'll get to him in a minute, but potentially Russell Wilson and the Seahawks and DK Metcalf and all them, and the 49ers, who were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, probably would have been in the mix had they just been healthy. They had the curse of the Philadelphia Eagles last year and everybody was injured. Yeah. So this is not an easy team where and I texted you this. I mean, the Cardinals were 7-9, 8-8. I don't think JJ Watt's that type of player that'll get you to 12-4, 13-3. Could he be that guy to get you 10-6 in a wild card? Sure. But that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it does not take the Cardinals over the top in the NFC for me. Like I still don't think I would pick the Cardinals over the Rams in their division right now, or maybe even Seattle. I don't know. I still need to kind of see what both of them do in the draft. But right now, like I still don't know between like who's going to be the third team between those three teams. Like it's a good fit for both teams. I mean, there's a need there for JJ Watt, so he has an opportunity to play more and he's getting a good contract. And I mean, JJ Watt and Chandler Jones, I mean, that's going to be scary. That's going to be a really strong, pass rush for Arizona, plus Isaiah Simmons as well. They definitely got some guys there in Arizona.
They just need to play Isaiah Simmons. I think he was averaging like 10 snaps a game last year.
Right. It was crazy.
You don't take a guy 7th overall and not play him.
Yeah. I mean, but their defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, he was, I think, JJ Watt's either defensive coordinator or like a defensive line coach his first 3 seasons in Houston. So I think that familiarity also had a lot to do with it. I'm sure they have a strong relationship. But, I guess the only other like kind of positive spin I can put on it for JJ Watt maybe is, these offensive lines in their division are not great. I mean, Seattle's is bad. I mean, I'm sure Russell Wilson now just, called his agent again. It's like, dude, now I really want to get traded. Like, my O-line is so bad, and you just
Aaron Donald twice, JJ Watt twice.
Exactly. Like
the 49ers off or defensive line twice a year. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Russell Wilson's definitely making some calls, and we'll get to him in a sec. But that's kind of the only other spin I can put on it for JJ Watt and the Cardinals. I mean, the offensive lines in their division are not, great. I mean, Seattle's is definitely below average. The Rams and the 49ers are kind of okay.
They're just old.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that opportunity, is there against those 3 teams for JJ Watt. And I mean, it's important to have a guy like that against a Russian QB like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. So, we'll see how much that helps them in those games. I think that'll be, the big key, like in those games, when Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray would normally take off, now you have JJ Watt and Chandler Jones and Isaiah Simmons who, have speed and power and, pass rush ability.
Even, Budda Baker, Patrick Peterson coming off the edge for a blitz or, a delayed blitz. I mean, Cardinals got some nice young pieces on defense, and we'll see with the health of everybody. But, I mean, we said it last year, NFC West could easily have all 4 teams in the playoffs now, but there's got a lot of work to be done. And fortunately, if you're the LA Rams, you go up against Aaron Donald every day in practice. So hopefully that'll help out the offensive line a little bit and staying in the division, as we mentioned, and we'll be talking about Russell Wilson, very passive-aggressive trade with request. He came out earlier a couple of weeks ago around the Super Bowl that he said that he's had some displeasures or frustrations, and rightfully so. He's running for his life almost every play. So, and we talked about it too. We didn't think that was more of just like a cry for help, being like, hey, like I'm here to help you. Like if you listen to me, maybe we can try to get a player or two that I like and I think would be a good fit for the system. Now it was kind of like it came out that he wanted a trade, and he said, no. I love playing in Seattle. I love Seattle, but if you do trade me, can it be to the Raiders, Bears, Saints, and a fourth team? I can't remember who it was.
It's the Cowboys.
The Cowboys. That's right. So it was very passive aggressive. Maybe the JJ Watt news, maybe that goes from 4 teams to 6 teams or 8 teams or whatever. But what do you think of this Russell Wilson situation? Do you think the Seahawks will trade him? Likewise, out of those 14 or out of the 3 teams, because you're not going to say Cowboys, I know that, Joe, but out of those other teams, if the Seahawks were like, all right, we'll trade you, like, where would you like to see him end up?
Well, I don't think it's gonna happen, but I understand why Russ wants it to, or why he might be feeling this way, and I can see a possible path where it does happen. I mean, the Seahawks the last couple of years have not done a good job of drafting at all, especially in the first round, and especially when it comes to surrounding talent around Russell Wilson. I mean, yes, they added DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson, but on the offensive line, they haven't added anybody. Their first round picks, I mean, who was it, like Rashad Penny a couple years ago? Last year, it was like that linebacker out of Texas.
Jordan Brooks.
Texas. Yeah, that's right. They just have not drafted well or drafted players with those premium picks to add talent around Russell Wilson. And then you add on top of that, they just traded away a bunch of their first round picks to get Jamal Adams. Now they don't have a first round pick this year to add an offensive lineman. It's, for him, I can see it as like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel with this for me? Like, I'm just going to be running for my life, like, every game, because, and it's also like they don't have a lot of money to just invest in free agents and bring those offensive linemen in. So it's a very tough situation for Seattle and for Russell Wilson. And, the only kind of viable path I see this as like actually playing out is if Seattle looks at themselves and says, we traded for Jamal Adams, we drafted this guy, we're trying to get our defense right, so our offense isn't, doing everything the whole game, and it didn't work. We're still not there. We're still, a little bit farther out than we thought we were. And, yes, we might be a playoff team, but are we a Super Bowl, roster right now? In my opinion, there's an argument to be made that the answer is no. And, if they have that hard look at themselves and say, okay, like, we need to, go all in on, rebuilding, then the only way to do that reasonably is trading Russell Wilson. I mean, he's not young anymore. He's in his early 30s and he's got a big contract. So if you can get rid of that contract and, acquire multiple first round picks for the next couple of years, that might be, a path that they choose to go on. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but it is a possibility. And one thing I want to slide in here real quick. My buddy James Taylor, friend of the podcast, came on, or he's been on, but he mentioned to me a couple of years ago when he was not in on Daniel Jones, not happy with them. Hey, Russell Wilson, he'd be great in New York. And I'm like, dude, there's no way that they're going to be able to, acquire him and make that happen. Like, he's not even going to want to leave. And he's just like, dude, I'll tell you one reason why. Sierra lives in New York. It's his wife. He loves his wife. He wants to do what's best for her. He's a great guy. He's going to come to New York. So I had to humble him and remind him that was not the case this week when I sent him a screenshot of those 4 teams. Just, why are the Giants on here, James? I guess Sierra's not that important. He was not pleased, but just kind of funny that a couple of those teams that were on there, like the Bears, for instance, like the Bears and the Raiders are kind of like, really, like.
Well, did you see that? I think it might have been NFL memes. It was like this is why Russell Wilson chose the Raiders, and it was like Derek Carr dropped back, and they had
I
like
saw that one. Yeah.
they had like 8 people blocking, and it was just like this giant like green pocket, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's why he wants the Raiders."
Yeah. No, that's fair. With the Bears, I don't really get it though. But I saw another meme that was like, Bears top 5 quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
It was like someone I hadn't heard of, and then Jay Cutler, and then Russell Wilson saying he'd
Yeah.
like to be traded to the Bears. Like, it was just, I don't know. I don't know why he would
it
want
could
to go
be
to the
this. I
Bears.
mean, we saw a couple of years ago with that defense. I mean, the Matt Nagy system does work. You just need some competence around him, and he might be saying like, "Hey, if I get traded to the Bears, maybe Allen Robinson's like, you know what? Maybe I will re-sign with them." So I think there are
Right.
some pieces, but and this goes back all the way back to when the Seahawks hired Pete Carroll, is that they're taking people in the first round that are kind of shocking. They're kind of like that fantasy owner who has like the 7th pick and takes the guy who's ranked like 21st, and everybody's like, you could have waited around, and they're like, nah,
Yeah.
I feel good about this guy. I mean, when they picked Bruce Irvin early,
That
everybody
was what
was
I was
kind
gonna
of
say.
like,
Yeah.
like,
It was a shock, but that one worked out at the time.
it did work out at the time. And like, even like Rashad Penny, Jordan Brooks last year, like all the analysts are kind of like, I think they could have waited a little bit, or maybe like have traded back to get another pick or two.
Right.
So this has been the Seahawks front office thing, and I think Russell Wilson will still stay in Seattle, but I think he kind of got to the point where, and we alluded to this a couple of weeks ago, where it's kind of like, look, guys, if you don't get me help this year, I'm going full Deshaun Watson next offseason, or something similar, being like, we better fix it this year. I better not be running around for my life. And it kind of trickles down too. And I don't want to say a DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett are diva wide receivers yet, but you kind of saw toward the end of the season that they were getting rather upset that they weren't getting the ball as much as they were at the beginning of the season. So it kind of trickles down where it's like, get me the football. And then Russell's like, I don't have time. And we always say, if the Seahawks establish a good running game, which they haven't been able to do since Marshawn Lynch left, then they're not that dominant Super Bowl team that they once were in that 2 or 3 year span. So it definitely comes down to the offensive line, and the Seahawks need to make some sort of big move, big draft, big signing to get a solid.
Go get Orlando Brown.
They're picking too late for a first round for us. Picking too
They
late.
don't have a first round pick.
Exactly. So that eliminates the Seahawks.
You're crazy, Tim. Give them a second or a third round pick, get it done.
Yeah, but I mean, out of any of those teams, I think it would be very interesting to see Russell Wilson. I just don't see it happening this offseason. Now, next offseason, sure. And speaking of the offseason, Joe,
I'd like to see him on the Saints out of them. You asked me for my best fit. I mean, he'd be the best there.
I mean, I think so too, but the Saints are in cap hell, and we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah, it's not possible.
We're going to be talking about that this weekend. Now that we're entering off-season mojo for the Flea Flicker, there's 8 more weeks until the NFL draft, and there's 8 NFL divisions. Wow, it's kind of like we planned that out, Joe. It's kind of like we planned that out. So if you are a fan of any team, we're more than happy to talk to you. Put it in the comments, slide in our DMs, and then we'll make it work. This weekend, we're going to start with the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're going to cover the NFC South. So if you are a friend or fan or both of the Buccaneers, Panthers, Saints, or the other team, the Falcons, definitely let us know. We'll be in contact with you. A quick 5 to 10 minutes on some things that you would like to see, some things that you would like to see, but then things that you think will actually happen. So definitely let us know, and then I'll put the rest of the divisions in the comments. We'll probably just go south, east, west, whatever. So definitely a lot of divisions to talk about. But Joe, I mean, that's it. I mean, Wentz, Watt, Wilson. And anything else you want to talk about for this week?
I think that there was an announcement today that they are looking pretty hard at adding a 17th game to the season. I think that is probably going to happen, is what it looks like. And I think that they would like rotate it each year, like which conference would have the extra home game. So I think this year it would be like the AFC would have the extra home game, and then I guess the following year would be the NFC.
I think I saw that it would be kind of like how they do with the other divisions in your conference, that it would be based on like the place you would play. And I think the article said that if that happened, the Ravens' opponent would be the Rams, because it was like the AFC North division is the NFC West, and if we finish second, they finish second. So I mean, we beat them like 55 to nothing on Monday Night Football last year. So hopefully that happens again. But yeah, so definitely interesting for that. And we'll see what the offseason news coming soon. Stay tuned this weekend as we cover the NFC South. If you are a fan of one of those teams, please let us know. We'll get you on for a couple of minutes. And, that's all I got, Joe. Any final words on your end?
Hey, that's all I got, man. It's the off season where dreams are made for everyone's team, and then all come crashing down week 1 when you lose to the team with no name, Washington football team. Give them their first win ever.
Hey, well, it's going to be a new year in just a couple of weeks when the NFL year resets. But other than that, guys, stay tuned. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and we will see you this weekend. Peace.